This is what I imagine a flashlight from the future might look like. This is the Imalent MS08, and this outer casing is a heat shield with two inbuilt fans to keep the heat under control from the 34,000 lumens of light power generated by this flashlight. Definitely worth a closer look.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Imalent described this as a search and rescue flashlight, as the beam pattern is primarily flood, but the high light output of 34,000 lumens also drives some decent range too. They also describe it as an everyday carry flashlight, and that's probably pushing it a little bit, as I can't see too many people carrying this with them every day. So the flashlight comes in a box, which is pretty substantial, and in that box you get some basic instructions. You get two charging leads because that allows you to simultaneously charge the flashlight and the heat shield fans, and you also get a couple of spares in the form of some O-rings and a spare screw that allows you to attach the heat shield to the flashlight. And then you get this holster, and this holster allows you to carry the flashlight with the heat shield on a belt or attached to a clip. So let's separate the heat shield from the flashlight itself to get a closer look at each component. And to do that, you simply loosen this screw here on top of the flashlight, and that allows the heat shield to separate from the flashlight itself. The flashlight on its own, I think, also looks really nice, really well finished. It's made out of an aircraft grade aluminium, according to the information, with a type 3 hard anodized finish, so it should be able to cope with a few knocks. It has here what you might describe as a non-aggressive crenulated bezel, and on the top here it has a magnetic charging connector. You'll notice it has two green LEDs on either side. That allows you to orientate the flashlight rotationally so you can find the on-off switch. It's otherwise really hard to find it in total darkness. These LEDs also show you if the battery starts to run low, they will flash green. The switch on the top, once you've found it, is really easy to press and has a nice clicky feel. In terms of weight, this thing weighs in at 663 grams. And in terms of dimensions in millimeters, the head has a diameter of 74, the body has a diameter of 51, and the overall length is 125.5 millimeters. The glass here is an ultra clear mineral glass, and it has an anti-reflective coating. The reflector here is aluminium, which is nice to see, and it is an OP reflector, which sounds quite technical, but it actually stands for orange peel, which means it's a non-smooth finish. And that means that this is designed more as a floodlight than a long throw beam, and the orange peel effect helps with the uniformity of the light distribution. The range on this light is quoted at 738 meters, which is quite a lot, but not a huge amount for a flashlight with 34,000 lumens of output. And the candela rating, which is the luminous intensity, is 136,000 candela. Sounds like a big number, but again, not a huge number for a light this bright. There are 8 LEDs in here. They are American made Cree XHP 70 generation 2 LEDs, and each one of these has a maximum output of 4,124 lumens. So if you multiply that by 8, you get a total output of closer to 33,000 lumens rather than 34,000 lumens. So I'm not quite sure where that figure comes from. There are some other reviewers online that have the technology to test the claimed light output using something called an integrating sphere to measure the luminous flux or overall light output, and a calibrated lux meter to measure the intensity. And there is a question mark over whether the output is as bright as claimed. But for the purposes of this review, I'm just going to be quoting the specification stated by Imalent, so you might want to research this further if you have any concern. The colour temperature of the LEDs used here is between 6000 and 6500 Kelvin, which is a very white light. It varies slightly depending on the power output. This flashlight has an IPX rating of 8, which is really good. It means it can be submerged up to 2 meters in water and still survive. And it should be able to withstand a drop of 1 meter. Okay, let's now have a close-up look at the heat shield. Now the heat shield is held in position on the flashlight with this single screw here, and that locks into this indent in the flashlight. The material here is PVC. It's really stiff and actually feels really good quality. The back part is made out of aluminium and it attaches to the rest of the body with these tiny little Allen bolts here. In terms of weight, the heat shield weighs just 124 grams, which is really lightweight. And when combined with the flashlight, the overall combined weight is 787 grams. In terms of dimensions, when you put the heat shield on, it increases the diameter at the head by 5 millimeters and the body diameter by 10 millimeters, and the overall length is increased by 15 millimeters. The two fans are located here and here, and they blow air inwards. The flashlight has an inbuilt temperature control module that reduces the light output if it starts to get hot. So these fans, by cooling the flashlight, will allow it to operate longer at higher light levels. If it gets to 50 degrees, the flashlight will drop down. So the aim of the fans is to try and maintain a 40-degree body temperature on the flashlight itself. The fan battery, which sits in the back part of the shield here and is separate from the flashlight battery, will last for about 1 hour and 45 minutes. And as we'll see when we get into the light power levels and duration, that is going to be more than enough time. The battery in here is charged with one of the magnetic charging leads that comes with the flashlight, and it simply attaches there. We get a red LED showing when it's charging, and that changes to green when it's fully charged, and it takes about 2.5 hours to fully charge the battery in here. The fans themselves are simply operated by the push of a button. We have a light that comes on and you can hear the fans fire up, and you can feel the airflow when you put your fingers inside. The switch is very easy to press, which is a problem because it's too easy, and if this was in a bag it would very easily get knocked, and you could almost guarantee that this would switch on, and that is not great. So I think that is a little bit of a design flaw with this switch because it can't be locked out. Having said that, you can though stand the shield on a flat surface and it doesn't bring on the flashlight because of these raised parts here. So that has been thought out, although that doesn't get away from the fact that this switch is too easy to knock if it was in a bag. And to reattach the case is very simple. You just simply slide it on like that and then screw down here, and then we have the combined units again. So the idea here is that the shield separates the hand from the flashlight itself, so when the flashlight gets hot you are not touching the metal, and then the fan is designed to cool the air around the flashlight to allow it to stay brighter for longer. I was wondering whether the shield is also capable of being submerged with these fans on, and my instinct would say no. However, on the Imalent website I noticed there is a photograph of the whole flashlight with the shield on it submerged, so that would suggest that the case can also be submerged. Okay, let's have a quick look inside the flashlight itself. And it simply unscrews here on a fine thread, and in here we have three 21-700 4000 milliamp hour high discharge batteries. I've noticed you can see through some of this blue film to some of the writing underneath, which shows that the battery here is a Samsung battery, which is a very good thing because in my view Samsung makes some of the best quality batteries you can buy. The battery separator here is made out of aluminium, which is really nice to see. It could easily be plastic, and that could be there to help dissipate the heat. The thread is well greased, and there is an O-ring here, of which there are a couple of spares in the box. And there we have it. Okay, let's have a look at the operation of the MS08. And the first thing to note is that it has a lockout mode by pressing this switch 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. You'll see the green light here flashes a few times to show that it is now locked out. So when I press this, nothing happens. And that's really useful because if this was in your bag banging around, there's a good chance that switch would be pushed, but it's very unlikely it will be pushed 4 times in quick succession. What I would normally do is unscrew the flashlight to make doubly sure that it's not going to operate in your bag, but it's really hard to do that with this shield on, so the fact that it's got a lockout is a very good thing. Doesn't get around the fact that the fan switch doesn't have a lockout, which will remain a frustration, I think. So to unlock it, you press it again 4 times in quick succession. 1, 2, 3, 4. The green light flashes again to say that it is now unlocked, and now it's ready to operate. I'm pleased to say the operation is really simple. You just press the switch to bring it on, and it comes on at the last used setting. So it has a memory, and then if you want to cycle through what are initially 5 different light levels, you press and hold the switch. 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's how you choose your light levels, and those 5 light levels are 300 lumens, 700 lumens, 2000 lumens, 5000 lumens and 10,000 lumens. If you triple press, you can bring the flashlight on at its lowest level, which is 300 lumens. Let's do that. 1, 2, 3. And there we have it at its lowest setting. And that's a really useful thing to be able to do, because sometimes you might not remember what you had it on before. You want it on at the lowest power initially, and now you can get straight to it by a triple press. And then if you want to go up through the higher powers, press it. So we start at 300, 700, 2000, 5000 and 10,000. And that is what is known as the high power level at 10,000. Press it once to switch it off again. So that's really simple to use. And that then brings us to the turbo mode, and it doesn't matter where you are in the settings, you just need to press the button twice in quick succession and it will go straight into turbo. So let's try that. 1, 2, and there we are at a extremely bright turbo mode, claimed to be 34,000 lumens. Press it once to turn it off. The memory mode won't take you back to turbo. You have to go in there with a double press. But if I go in, say, with a triple press, 1, 2, 3, bring it on at the low level, I can go straight from here to turbo with a double press. And there we have it. So it's very easy to get to turbo mode. It's easy to switch it on and cycle through the other 5 modes. And it's very easy with a triple press to get it into the lowest power 300 lumen mode. There is also a strobe mode here. You get to that from turbo, interestingly. So once you're in turbo, you double press it again to get to the strobe. So let's do that. Double press turbo, double press strobe. And there we are in the strobe. It maintains a constant frequency of strobe. It doesn't move from that. And then to switch it off, you just press it once. The only other thing to note is that the orientation lights need to be brought on, and to do that you press and hold the main button from the off position for a few seconds, and you can see the green lights are now on both sides, and when you come to turning those off you press and hold again in the off position and those lights go off. Okay, so here is the runtime chart provided by Imalent, and the first thing you can see is that the turbo mode of 34,000 lumens only has a relatively short duration of 45 seconds, and that's not unusual for high power flashlights to have a limited burst mode because they get very hot very quickly and then they need to shut down to a lower power level to preserve the electronics and to protect the batteries. Then you will see it will drop down to the next level, which is the 10,000 lumen level, and run for a further 53 minutes. Now, if you started off on the 10,000 lumen level, you can see that that should run for 60 minutes. So having that turbo on for 45 seconds has effectively knocked 7 minutes out of the battery life. So the 10,000 lumen level, which is the highest level outside of the turbo mode, is actually a key light level because that is the light level where the fans can have an impact. So at that 10,000 lumen light level, it will drop down a little bit over time, but not as much when the fans are on. So it will stay brighter for longer, and ironically it will run out of battery more quickly because it is operating at a higher brightness level. So at the turbo level, the fans don't really make a difference. It gets hot too quickly for that. And at the levels below the high level, that's the low level and the middle 1, 2 and 3, the fan casing doesn't really have an impact because it never really gets hot enough to have an impact. So the casing is there to protect your hands from a very hot flashlight. The fans are there to cool the flashlight, but only really have an impact at the 10,000 lumen setting. One thing you can see from this chart is that at the lower levels, it will run for a long time at what is still a very bright light level. So for example, 300 lumens is enough to get around with for most people, say on a walk, and it will last for 30 hours at that level. And that is really impressive. At 700 lumens, which most people would say is pretty bright, it will last for 19 hours. And even at 2000 lumens, which is a very high brightness level for most flashlights, 4 hours 50. And at 5000 lumens, you're still going to get an hour and a half of a very bright light. So it's worth noting that away from the headline figures of 34,000 lumens and the cooling heat shield, you still have a flashlight here that has very bright output for a very long duration for most requirements. And that in itself is not a bad reason to own this flashlight. When it comes to charging, then we have this proprietary magnetic lead that attaches here, and then you get a red light to show it's charging, and that goes green when it's fully charged. Now, normally I'm not a massive fan of a proprietary charging lead because if you lose this or it gets damaged, then you're in a spot of bother when it comes to recharging the flashlight. Having said that, this one does come with two, so you can simultaneously charge the flashlight and the heat shield. So if you do lose or damage one, you've still got a backup. But ideally, I would prefer to see a USB-C solution because they are easily available and we're probably carrying them anyway. In terms of charging rate, because we have the proprietary cable and that it has USB-A on it, it does limit the charging rate somewhat. The maximum charging rate you can get out of USB-A is 2.4 amps at 5 volts. This charges at 2 amps and 5 volts, which is still considered fast charging for USB-A, but is a long way from fast charging for something like USB-C, which I would prefer to see. The time to charge for the heat shield is 2.5 hours from flat, and for the flashlight itself, it should fully charge in 6 to 7 hours. As far as price goes, in the US, it is $295, and in the UK, £275, which includes purchase tax. It seems that Imalent holds stock in the US and in the UK, Europe, Japan and Canada. So that allows for quick delivery in those areas. For everywhere else, it seems they ship out of China, which I imagine will take quite a bit longer. I've included a link to the Imalent store in the description below this video. And mine arrived in the UK well within a week, although I will point out that Imalent sent me mine at no cost following a request from me to review it. Okay, now is the time to take it outside and see it in action. Walking up a hill, a quiet road, and it's on 300 lumens at the moment. So it will last for 30 hours at this level, and this is plenty of light to navigate normally at fairly close distances. Now we have 700 lumens. You can now see along this hedgerow it's much brighter, lots more than you would probably need for just general walking. Here we have 2000 lumens, so see plenty ahead. So we're talking, from what I remember, more than 4 hours at this light level at 2000 lumens. Okay, let's go up to the next level, which is 5000. So lots of detail ahead now. It's very cold. It's about 0 degrees at the moment. 10,000 lumens. This is the highest level in the normal settings. And then just to compare, 34,000 lumens. And there we go. Hugely bright. .300 lumens. Now we have 700 lumens. Then we have 2000 lumens. Then we have 5000 lumens. Then we have 10,000 lumens. Then we switch to 34. Does actually look like daylight in here. And now we're at 10,000 lumens, which it's staying at now. See how hot it gets at 10,000 lumens. So I've got a head torch on here. Just going to see how hot this is. Okay, yeah, that makes a great hand warmer. Feels hot, quite uncomfortable to hold. So it is hot, and obviously putting the case on you can't feel anything at all. There's no doubt the case insulates your hand and does a really good job, and then the fans keep the flashlight cool to keep it brighter for longer. Okay, here we have 300 lumens, 700 lumens, and we jump up to 2000 lumens, and then we jump up to 5000 lumens, 10,000 lumens, and then the turbo. 300 lumens, 700 lumens, 2000 lumens, 5,000 lumens, 10,000 lumens, turbo, 34,000 lumens. So in conclusion, well, I think this is a quality flashlight. It seems really well made, and I think it looks great. It can be held in the hand when running hot at high levels and at turbo without burning your fingers, and avoids the need to have a handle, which other makers employ, of powerful flashlights, which I think look bulky and ugly compared. There's no doubt the fans do work when running at the 10,000 lumen level, allowing the light to stay brighter for longer, and this has been confirmed with independent reviews. The fans don't though seem to impact on the turbo mode, which has to drop down within a minute irrespective of whether you have the fans on or not, and the fans don't seem to impact on the modes below the 10,000 lumen mode because they don't seem to run hot. I imagine though this might be impacted by ambient air temperatures on the day in question. So like a lot of high power flashlights, the turbo mode is just that, a useful feature for sub-minute bursts of light, but not for sustained long-term use. There is no doubt though that this is an incredibly bright flashlight, and at the lower settings it still provides serious illumination at long run times. The heat shield cooling system is an added bonus and does a good job at keeping it cool in the hand, and an okay job at managing the body temperature of the flashlight. It also has the benefit that it makes this flashlight look like it fell out of a passing spaceship. If you've enjoyed this review, you might want to check out my review of the baby brother of the MS08, which is the MS06. It's smaller and cheaper, but does lose out on some power. To see that now, just follow the link here. So that's it for this review. I hope it's been useful. Thank you as always for watching. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.